Oops. I just pulled my webcam down. Does it still work? Just a second. Yeah, it still works. What up? We'll take a look at this video. Titan forging is gone. Okay.
Well, I hope you're ready for 4 layers of RNG. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Warcraft video. Today we're doing a deep dive into the new corrupted gear system of Visions of N'Zoth. We've tested this extensively in-game. We're also armed with the detailed data mining of Wowhead and Blizzard's own post detailing their goals and how the system works. So today you're going to learn how the new mechanic works, though of course the final balance is yet to be seen. Now, my opinions do tend to run hot in gearing. They certainly do here, so I'll save them till after the breakdown. Now, one thing I will mention is a lot of people say not to give feedback because it's only PTR.
That's
and
when
this
you
is
give
often
feedback.
said when
What do you
people
mean?
don't like the feedback. And it's pretty absurd. It's called the public test realm for a reason. It exists for players to give Blizzard early feedback. Blizzard in their post literally asked for feedback on the system as a whole. With that in mind, let's get to it. So corrupted gear is the...
Imagine thinking a test realm that's based off of iterative development derived from people that are giving feedback. Imagine not giving feedback to the devs. I mean, that's the whole point. I can't believe that, man.
Placement for Titan Forging, and it is not a permanent addition to the game. And yes, that does mean that gear is not going to Titan Forge in this patch. Currently, not even tertiary stats or gem sockets appear on the test gear. Now, this new corruption system is essentially Titan Forging and benthic gear effects blended in together. So corrupted gear will drop with a positive effect and a corruption value. The total corruption of your character is the sum total of all the corruption on your gear, and your character will experience negative effects depending on its level of corruption. So the first thing we'll do is cover the negative effects. Now, if you've got any corruption at all, then you'll get the Grasping Tendrils debuff, and this one basically means that taking damage has a chance to slow your character, and the scope of the slow will increase with the more corruption that you get. It can be up...
The dude's not even moving. Look at him, he can barely even move.
To an over 100. Then our second one, Corrupted Zone, kicks in at 20 corruption. It just drops a void zone on the floor that deals damage to you based on your corruption level. Now, this started off at 17k base damage on PTR, but by level 50 corruption, it deals 50k per tick. And Wowhead know that it can crit for 100% or 150% its normal damage. So realistically, if you take too much of this, it will kill you. And it will present a major problem in group content. Imagine if your group is, say, stacking for a raid mechanic, only to have a void zone that's 10 yards just drop beneath you. Sure, it'll only impact you, but you'll have to break formation, and that is very bad for, say, dealing with the damage soak mechanic. We then have Grand Delusions. This kicks in at 40 corruption, and it spawns in an enemy that will chase you down, but neither us or Wowhead have actually managed to get it to proc, so we'll have to test that later. And then we've got the real kicker at 60 corruption, Creeping Death. This is crazy. It's an always-on damage taken increase and heal.
The way I'm actually thinking about this is that I look forward to this actually coming out, because I think that it's going to be a way for really, really dumb players to just completely fuck themselves. Like, imagine being really, really bad at the game and putting on all the corrupted gear and then having your character just not work at all. I think that'd be fucking hilarious. Honestly, it'd be really, really fucking funny, man. It says right to you? Yeah. I mean, that'd be hilarious to me, at least.
Intake and decrease.
That's the best part about it.
And that's really rough. And the thing is, it will increase the damage you take from, say, the Void Zone corruption debuff, and that can really be deadly. I got over 100 corruption and was basically globaled by it. So really, rolling with anything past, I'd say 30 or 40 corruption just seems like a pretty terrible idea, really, especially because the effects just aren't compatible with how group content is actually played, the negative effects, that is. Either Blizzard forgot that World of Warcraft is not played like Diablo, or they specifically designed this stuff to be a problem in dungeon and raid content, so that, well, players are de-incentivized from going too ham. And it really is not stuff that you can play around. There are, say, raid execution mechanics, or like raid mechanics that you'd need to execute, that say that void zone would really mess up. But anyway, that's the downsides of corruption. Let's talk about the upsides and also explain how corruption levels work. So currently, each bit of corrupted gear can have one of 11 positive effects. And that's kind of why I said they were a little bit like benthic gear.
I think the effects are cool. I actually am relatively positive towards this gear in general. I think that the whole thing is interesting. It's not stupid or anything like that. I feel like it's relatively interesting. I mean, it's not something crazy cool, but I mean, the corrupted idea is interesting, but I don't know if it's really going to be implemented in a way. Like Blizzard, it feels like they're always constantly trying to prevent really, really stupid players from handicapping themselves. And I just can't see the corrupted items not being a handicap for really, really stupid players.
There'll be a few effects that will really be good for your class, and I mean really. Now, this also brings back a balance problem that I'll cover later, but to tease you, remember how some of the benthic effects could be worth like 40 item levels? They were so powerful.
Huge.
Well, it seems like we're going to have that again, but in a really big way. So, each bit of gear drops with a positive effect and a corruption level. As I said, the sum of your corruption will lead to you getting the negative effects that I covered earlier. Now, currently, each one of the positive effects has 3 different magnitudes. So for crit damage, as an example, that damage bonus drops at 3 tiers of power, a 5% bonus, 6% bonus, and 7% bonus.
Okay.
That's not all though, as the corruption can vary within a tier's range. So right now, tier 1 is 5 to 10 corruption, 2 is 12 to 17 corruption, and tier 3 is 20 to 25 corruption.
That's a
now
lot.
this means that if you say drop the 6% bonus crit damage, that's the second tier, so that bit of corrupted gear will give you between 12 and 17 corruption. Now, because of this, you'll want as many of the positive effects as you can get, but as few of the negatives as is possible.
They fixed this. I saw Ian's tweet about this. They did fix this part of it.
And that means that, say, dropping a 6% bonus crit damage leg with 12
it's
corruption
fixed values.
is far better than dropping a 6% bonus crit leg with 17 corruption, because if you get those good rolls across a few bits of gear, then you'll be able to put on an extra effect or two, or maybe wear, an effect at a higher tier of corruption, right? So that really does matter, because some of these effects could be worth, 20, 30, maybe even 40 item levels if we're going by the benthic situation, and some of them certainly seem to be that currently. Now, this means that we do have 4 layers of RNG on our gear. Will your gear be corrupted? Will the gear have a positive effect that you want? Will it have a positive effect that you want and have a low amount of corruption for its tier of positive effects? And that does mean that in some ways there is more RNG now than ever, and based on the design of the early effects, they will have a significant impact on your throughput. There is also a slight, well, I'd say anti-pattern in terms of the design. Like, there are some effects that say are just completely useless for a tank, completely useless for a healer, or maybe you get a healer-friendly one, but you're a DPS. And I think those are rather unfortunate situations where what should be a rewarding moment will actually be quite a letdown, because you could get a really high-tier corrupted item, but just have a positive effect that really is not that good at all. And I think that would objectively be worse than, say, some aspects of the Titan Forging system. Now, with all this said, you are able to manage your corruption. So the Heart of Azeroth has a new minor slot, and from what I understand in the PTR, that slot will only take a new anti-corruption essence. So that
I do think that the way that the Azerite gear and the necklace and the essences and everything, I like that. I genuinely think that it's good. I know that might be, upsetting for people to hear, but I actually think that it would be very, very good. For them to do more of the necklace levels. The reason why I like the essences is that they affect all different elements of the game. It allows you to, it meshes like Mythic Plus and raiding and PvP and world quests and these different things that you can do in the game, and the essences are able to help you in the entire game, but you can only get them from one different source. So it encourages players to go and play the game in different ways that they wouldn't normally do, because they want to get those types of essences. So I actually think the essence system is good.
It's one thing you can do, but the primary method of decreasing corruption is your legendary cloak. Blizzard in their post said that as you upgrade the cloak, you will get increased corruption resistance. Now, many speculated that corruption resistance would be part of the infinite trait in the Heart of Azeroth, but Blizzard have not mentioned that. And probably with that cloak, I think it maxes out at eye level 475, so you'll get however many, corruption reductions come from doing that. Now, you might be thinking, okay, if my drops are corrupted, but I can't handle any more corruption, is that drop useless? Well, technically
hold on
no,
to
because
it.
you can cleanse corrupted gear for free, and that means you can always use gear that drops for you. Of course, that will remove the corruption effect, though, so you'll also lose the positive. So overall here, it seems like your ever-increasing tolerance to corruption via the cloak will be a steady nerf to Battle for Azeroth content. Indeed, you often do see them go a little bit off the rails with the final patch of an expansion, maybe a little bit like how Legion powered us up so much through 7.3 and 7.3.5, but I expect Blizz will not go that high, because going from like complete god to BFA starting character did not feel good. Now, going into this system, like in a realistic scenario, assuming you get say 20 or so resistance from your first essence and the start of the legendary cloak, you'll be able to wear like 2 bits of like perfect roll tier 1 corrupted gear and get like no downsides, or maybe just 1 bit of tier 1 gear that's a little bit more corrupted. But overall, I just can't see players wanting to go too much above 30 corruption. And when you look at
that's the thing, is like this whole corruption thing, like people aren't going to want to handicap themselves with the gear. I think that it just overcomplicates things. And BFA is already like the amount of things that you need to think about whenever you're doing a fight. It's too much already. Like the amount of multitasking you need to have. You need to be paying attention to the mechanics. You need to be paying attention to your rotation, and now you have to pay attention to the corruption too at the same time. Like, you compare that to classic WoW, there's little to no rotation, there's little to no mechanics, and you can focus on just kind of playing the game, and you don't have to be really stressed out whenever you're playing. I think that honestly, like raiding now, especially like mythic raiding, it's kind of stressful, because there's just so many things that you need to do and keep track of that I feel like it just makes the game kind of unfun and not really enjoyable as much. Like, yeah, I mean, your opinion? Well, no, that of course it's my opinion, right? I mean, by definition, it's my opinion by me saying this. But I think that in, like, my opinion, whenever I do raids, they're so stressful to do because there's so many things that I have to keep up with and keep track of that it's fatiguing to do them. There's too many mechanics. Like, I have to have add-ons to keep track of shit, add-ons to keep track of other things. They're like, when the point whenever you need extra abilities and like add-ons and shit to keep track of everything you're doing in a fight, it's too complex.
The maths here, it's very clear the Blizz are prioritizing having many minorly corrupted bits of gear instead of a few very corrupted bits of gear, just in terms of the like efficiency of the corruption to the positive effect, but the balance could change there. Now, this does create a problem, right, where you could get a new bit of gear that's too corrupted with too much of a positive effect, but you know it'll be great after a few weeks of cloak upgrades. That means you won't want to cleanse it because that would remove your beneficial effect, but, you know, you can't equip it, you don't cleanse it, so it's just a dead bit of gear for a few weeks. And I think that's a bit awkward. Cleansing is basically removing your Titan Forging and Benthic effect so that you can wear the gear now, but that's not going to feel good to players. Now, I think the best way to jump into opinions here is to actually go through Blizzard's itemization philosophy that they recently posted along with this new system. They said they are always looking to create moments of excitement, heard that before, and choices and options to customize gameplay to suit your playstyle. Now, I would immediately say back that their attempts at excitement through Titan Forging have made gear less exciting, they've increased apathy, and the random acquisition of the Legion Legendaries was a very bad idea. Now, they talk about choices and customization, but here's the thing. If they really wanted that, they would not roll with a simple single target or AoE build for every spec in the game, and Azerite gear would not have such a painful reforge cost if the design intent was that you were constantly customizing your builds along with, say, you know, your Azerite and your new corrupted gear. So that logic just doesn't add up, guys.
You've got a lot of things you always need to balance with. Like, there's like 10 different things you have to balance together. You've got to deal with your Azerite gear, your normal gear, your fucking necklace, your corruption level. I mean, there's a lot of shit to think about. And I don't know if the shit that you have to think about really makes the game better or not. It depends. Like, I like games being complex, but this type of complexity, I just don't really enjoy it a lot. I don't really feel like it's fulfilling to master it.
Now, moving on through the post, Ian said that they've heard players' complaints that Titan Forging makes progression feel less rewarding because you might already have really good gear that Titan Forged from previous content, and that feeling that an item could be better will lead to a disappointing reward moment, which Blizzard doesn't want. And I agree with them, not really a good situation.
Exactly.
But here's
what
the
we've
thing.
been saying for
this
years.
system does not solve those problems at all. If you get a bit of corrupted gear that you can't wear, you can either remove the extra stuff on it that makes it unique, so, you know, in order to wear it now by purifying it, and that's going to feel really bad, or you can just put it in your bag and wait a few weeks until you've got more corruption resistance. I mean, come on, guys. Come on, Blizz. How can you write that post and think that this system solves those problems? Like, do you have a realistic view of your game? Come on. So that's what Blizzard had to say in their post,
As I said,
with them also
man,
just adding...
I would love to see the armories of a lot of these developers and see how often they're actually playing their game. Because I think with a lot of them, they're not playing the game. They just design the game and they experience it in a very, very, like, limited way, and they don't really do anything else besides, like, maybe doing, like, a normal raid with their friends or something like that, which is, like, I understand, like, yeah, they have to work and do the game, but you have to understand the game to an extent. I don't think they understand the game very well. They don't spend a whole lot of time playing it, and they don't understand the community either.
Towards the end, that corruption is not permanent, but is an extension of the N'Zoth theme.
Classic.
Now,
yeah, exactly.
They end it by asking for feedback on the broad system, so let's give him some feedback.
Okay.
The gameplay is pretty much a case, right, of getting as many positive effects as you can while managing acceptable corruption levels and just doing, you know, your weekly, I guess whatever the weekly grind is to get your cloak up. Now, I get the design intent here, but frankly, this is a system that would work in Diablo or Path of Exile, not World of Warcraft. People talk about the devs not playing WoW, and I don't think that's true. I don't really think that's fair. I do think that they maybe have a warped perspective because their job involves creating the game, and they don't always do a good job of, you know, moving away from that perspective. And
I think they might play the game to an extent, but they don't play the game in a way that resonates with the player base. It doesn't reflect the way that normal people's interface and interact with the game.
Understanding the player perspective. I mean, looking at this system, I look at this and I just see a different game to World of Warcraft. I see a system that is designed pretty much in isolation. Now, they say they've been listening to player concerns, but from what I've seen, that's not the case. And that's because they've met player concerns over RNG with extreme, multi-layered RNG. Now, sure, some players will think that no Titan forging to mess with item levels fixes part of the problem. That'll be good for trading gear, certainly, but that's not overall the case, because these positive effects will be worth, in many cases, dozens of item levels.
Yeah, they're really fucking good.
This probably damages the relationship between item level and throughput even more than Titan forging did, and I mean,
I don't know.
It's almost sometimes it's almost as if they're paid off by raid bots. Like, that's how just needlessly complex they make these gear systems. Like, this is not going to benefit Blizz. It's not going to benefit players. It is going to benefit, like, the raid bots Patreon. So it just doesn't make gear more simple and easy to understand. And, you know, WoW is also not a game that has a large number of diverse specs. And if Blizzard wanted, you know, different corrupted gear builds to be experimented with, then the rapidly increasing Azerite gear reforging costs, they're an anti-pattern to that design intent. I don't know why they do that. They also made it such that the positive effects of this system are extremely boring, flat damage increases for the most.
Yeah, of course they're boring. Like the things you have to deal with are really complex and interesting, and then the bonuses you get are 4% critical strike damage. Yeah, obviously that sucks. I don't know why they did the thing they did with Azerite gear, where you have to have different Azerite gear for each spec. I think that's a huge mistake, honestly, and just like the way that Azerite gear is locked to a spec and it just costs more and more money, it feels like it's just very... it's restrictive, it's annoying because you have to carry it around with you all the time, and there's no reason for that to be the case. Like, I don't get, like, why they did that at all. Like, they could have done a million different ways, but they chose to do it this way, and it was fucking dumb. Like, they should have made all of the Azerite traits spec-specific, and then allowed it to where whenever you respect, you had the spec-specific trait for that other spec. So, like, if you're arms, it has the seismic shock. If you're fury, it has cold steel hot blood. And if you're prod, it has the avatar one. Each one would be different, and that way you wouldn't have to farm 3 different pieces of the same item. It just sucks.
Part, or just, you know, flat increases for the most part. That's something they've said they think is boring in the past. The only interesting gameplay comes from circumventing the punishments that they give to you. Now, I think that might work in a game with a really fast loop and the kind of just look and feel of Diablo or Path of Exile, but, I mean, for the 7 millionth time, World of Warcraft and Diablo are different games, and I really wish Blizz would just get that finally. This also clearly continues a pattern of overcompensation from Blizzard. The positive and negative effects of the Crucible of Storms gear were really cool, and I praised them at the time. They were an option, they were a part of gearing to think about. They did not define the entire gearing system of the game. Blizzard seemed to have seen that that was well received, seen the benthic gear participation, and basically just thought, oh, clearly players want both of those things to the max. and also want them to be the foundation of gear in World of Warcraft, because corruption is foundational to the gear of 8.3. Guys, with 8.3, it seems like you are designing World of Warcraft's gear as if you are designing the seasonal quirks of Path of Exile. Again, they're entirely different games. And I've got to be real with you here, the lack of clear progression and the mountains of RNG is the primary reason why I'm completely unmotivated to work on my characters, that plus the, inevitable catch-up. It's not like how, say, back in the day, and I know that's a trope, but, King Yearman's big red sword that was an epic that I could get from Utgard Keep. I'd just go there, I'd run it a bunch, I'd get my thing, and I'd be really happy that I've done that. That's just not really possible in the current gearing system of the game. Now bits of gear are not defined by themselves. They are defined by what an external system does to them. That's very unlike where I think RPG gear should be. I mean, heck, by applying the design elements of the Crucible of Storms gear across all of 8.3, they've managed to lose the uniqueness that they had, and that makes it no longer interesting. They were cool because it was just a few unique slots that had very clear, drawbacks and positives. This is just more RNG, more complexity. How Ian could say the corrupted gear is based off listening to player feedback and then push this to the PTR, I just do not know. I mean, here's a more...
Well, I don't think it's really the same thing, because like the bonuses that you got from the Crucible gear were just bonuses. Like, you didn't get anything bad out of that. They were just bonuses. It was awesome. I thought the Crucible gear was really cool. Now, obviously, if every piece is like that, it gets a little bit boring. But for the most part, I would say they were just, in general, good.
Simple system, right? Gear just drops at a fixed item level, whatever. But you can get a maximum of, say, 3 Black Empire relics, and you can slot them into your gear and unslot them at will. And these relics contain a positive effect and a negative effect, and they're tradable within groups when raiding, and you're capped to wearing 3 of them at once. There you go. That would be a small, thematic system that would add a little bit of flavor to the new content without taking over the whole gearing system and homogenizing it completely. Maybe you could add them, remove them, or modify them with a resource, something like that. I mean, I literally just thought of that idea as I typed it, and I think it would have fewer negative externalities than the current system Blizzard wishes to implement. I mean, it's basically just souped up minor glyphs, or major glyphs even. Remember major glyphs? Why not just do those? I mean, here's what really gets me.
Change for the sake of change. That's why. Blizzard does this all the time. They change things. Why do they change it? They change it because they change it. That's why. What do people want? The same thing. What do they get? Something different. Why is that? Who the fuck knows? It change for the sake of change. I hate it.
This is clearly taking so much design time to work out and to balance. But does it make the game better? No, I don't think it is. It's just another hurdle to deal with. Does this make gear more interesting? I mean, I don't think so. And when it does, it's in a way that would work for an ARPG loot game like Diablo, not a slow burn MMO with heavily gated weekly sources of gear. The design time that went into this system could have went into God knows what else.
Anything.
And WoW has serious design issues in other elements that are other aspects that need to be worked on. That they just invented a new problem for players to solve in order to get back to the same relative power they would be at anyway shows that they're just caught in a holding pattern of directionless development. They're designing systems to counter problems, then they're designing systems to counter problems caused by the systems that they've designed to cause other problems, and then they're designing other systems to counter those problems, which invariably, of course, cause their own problems. There is a beauty in simplicity when it comes to design,
there
right?
Sure is.
That's what a really beautiful design is. There. It's simple, it's readable, it does the job just right. It doesn't require raid bots, and importantly, it would allow the developers to stop wasting their time constantly rebuilding the worst part of the game. It just seems like they've come up with the most needlessly complex, expensive to implement, and externality-causing solution to the gearing problem. Just keep it simple, my dudes. We all just love a simple gearing process paired with other things to do with our characters. I think that's the main thing here. Get gear working well and just focus on, other cool stuff to do for our characters. Patch 8.3's horrific visions, at least in solo, I think are really darn cool. Like when the stakes are higher. That's a great example of another fun bit of content. Really, I think Blizzard should just think about the opportunity cost in actually dealing with this so much. Time forging has been lambasted for years. They keep on just trying and trying and trying when, to be honest with you, it seems like they're doing this out of sheer pride at this stage. I do not see how this is making World of Warcraft better. Mostly, I just see how...
It doesn't. It doesn't. Like what he just said, it's completely true. Is it making the game better? Does it make the game better? Fuck no, it doesn't make the game better. No, it doesn't make the game better at all. It makes it the exact opposite of that. It makes it fucking worse. That's all they're doing. Is they're just trying to make these systems to keep people playing the game over and over and over. And they never think about, does it make the game better or not? I don't understand. Like, I feel like the way that he's approaching it and looking at it, does this make the game better or not? If you look at it from that perspective, there are so many other changes that the game has had over the years that do not fill that. They do not make the game better.
How it's making World of Warcraft worse. And I get that there are some ways for more casual players that a system like this could be cool and exciting. I really think that they could do other systems or other things that would achieve that goal while having less negative externalities. Really, it's the externalities, right? The sort of costs of doing the things that Blizzard think will be a benefit that they don't necessarily seem to anticipate. That's the big issue here. And overall, to me, it's just opportunity cost. I mean, this all takes up designer time. Designer time could be going into so many more things that would actually be fun to engage with, that could actually be things for our characters to do that are new. I think they have this false premise of just infinite engagement via gear that is based off, say, the ongoing participation in Diablo 3, or maybe how games like Path of Exile do quite well in the long tail, but I don't think they understand that that's not what World of Warcraft is. It's an MMORPG. Gear should be unique, gear should be cool, gear should not be homogenized into one big system, and from a player psychology perspective, I think just about everything they've said has been debunked time and time and time again, and this new system does really, I mean, it just shows they don't understand the problems. And that's my take on it. It could change, and it's bouncing on PTR. Fundamentally, though, I think it's pretty terrible. My only hope, I suppose, is that this has removed Titan Forging for this patch, and that does mean that when the next expansion rolls around, there could be something else instead of Titan Forging, and it might be better than this system.
I think it will be.
That's my last hope for World of Warcraft gearing that I'm holding out. But yeah, I mean, TLDR, I just wish the team would catch themselves on, look in the mirror, just implement something nice and simple that they could do a little bit more quickly, and just put their design time into new things for our characters to do. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I'd absolutely love to hear what you've got to say about this system down below. And with that, I will see you next time.
The fuck, this suit's got 10,000 gold. How the fuck, can I get that? Just like, all right, can I get like 2,000? That's only like 20%, man. You're not even gonna notice it. Can I get like 2,000 gold? That's, oh shit, he canceled it. Fuck, man. That's a lot of money, man. That's a lot of fucking money. It's insane. This is a very good video. Obviously, I feel the same way, right? We want less RNG. We can't hear you over the slot machines. Wait, the camera died? Okay. Oh, fuck. I don't know why this thing keeps dying every day. Like, it never would do this, and now it's doing it all the time. I have no idea why. Okay, I've got the other camera on now. I don't know why this shit happened. Anyway. Add back the Reforger and make the bad stats into whatever you like. Yeah, I think a lot of people would like to see that too. I'm pretty sure most people would. It's a DSLR. Yeah, but it wasn't doing that. Like, I've had this camera for a year, and I did my classic stream for 24 hours, and the camera was on the whole time, and it never died. So I don't know why it's dying regularly now after it wasn't dying at all for over a month. It doesn't make sense to me in that way. That's why. Overheating now? Yeah, it just kind of has started happening. Like, maybe battery got fucked, eventually they burn up. I don't know, right? I mean, I'm just saying, like, that's what's confusing. Did it hit that point, or is it something else that's wrong? I don't know. Just keep it simple, my dudes. That's right. That's all Blizzard needs to do. Keep the game simple. Keep the game simple. It doesn't need to be this overly complex thing with 8 different fucking interactions and everything like that. Now, I kind of like that in a way, but I feel like the way that Blizzard does it isn't really very fun. And if Blizzard handled it and did it on a way that was more fun, then yeah, it would be cool. But